Testing, testing. Good morning, everybody. How are you doing today? Thank you for coming out and joining me on this early Saturday morning here on the United States East Coast, North Carolina. It's a balmy 38 degrees outside, so there is no window open for this day, but we are doing some resin printing. And I did want to go through and give you my first impressions of the Elegoo Mars 2 Pro and the Mercury Plus wash and cure station. So far, I think it's been an interesting experience. We had some issues getting through the initial Z homing and setting the Z axis for the Mars 2 Pro. The documentation, I'll say, was a little bit lacking. It missed a step, which was to basically run the Z, not manually adjust the plate, mount the build plate, undo the set screws, hold the plate in the ball bear or the ball joint in the specific orientation, and then tell it to hold, because doing it that way, the plate will auto, we'll say, level to the actual build surface. Dead skin there. Get off. Not working. All right. But anyhow, so once we got through that, and thank you for folks in the community that helped, Craft and Tech Titan and Chewy, and as well as Titan Revenge coming in later on to drop some pearls of wisdom. We did get it up and running, and I do want to go through and review some of the first prints off of the Elegoo. We did start the initial test print that comes on the Elegoo Mars USB stick, which is a set of two chess rook pieces. They're kind of a torture test for resin printers because it has a spiral staircase, and then the inside, I'll say, supporting rod. Hey, good morning, Westry. The inside supporting rod for the staircase is actually like two very thin, twisted elements, similar to like a DNA strand. Hey, good morning, Tom Josh. Wow, you're up early today. What is it, 8 o'clock there? You have to work this morning, Tom Josh? So we had a very, okay, heading to work, yeah. So we had a very long stream. We did about a 6.5 hour stream on Thursday in order to get the Elegoo Mars properly Z-homed and get the first prints off of it. And that was great. And then after we got the first print off, the nice thing with the Mercury Plus wash and cure station is you don't even have to pop the print off the build plate. You can set the build plate. Actually, here, let me do a quick reorganization here and switch some cameras. So this is the wash and cure station, and as part of the wash and cure station, you've got a magnetized rotating build plate. or not a build plate, but basically a turntable that'll rotate the model around and allow the UV light to cure the resin. But this comes off, and you've got your wash bin, which you fill up with your 99% isopropyl alcohol. Hey, Evil Diesel, good morning. Yeah, this thing works really, really well. In fact, I just ordered, so I've ordered some carbon filters that actually will go in the Elegoo Mars chamber, and that'll help with some of the resin smell, because Miss Dragon, or Mrs. Dragon, said, yeah, I got to open the window. It's going to get moved to the garage eventually once it warms up. But with the wash and cure station, what's nice is the basket sits all the way down in there, and there's two little lips on it, and the build plate can sit right on top of it, and the print can be submerged. So what you do is you make sure that when the basket is fully seated or sitting down in the basket or in the tub, that the level of your IPA is up above that rack position. And then that way, when you put your build plate with your model in, it'll of course raise it up a little bit more, so it's washing the top off of the build plate, which goes down into the resin. So you're getting the build plate washed and you're getting the part washed at the same time. And what I have found is after it's washed, and you just pick it up, hold it, and let it drain out, and then I'll put it down here on top of a piece of paper towel on my slap mat. It's a lot easier to get off at that stage, and normally because some little part of the raft has come up just a bit, so it makes it even easier. It gives you a point to get your chisel point scraper underneath that edge, and it pops right off. And then in talking with Titan's Revenge and Chewy and Ocetocraft on Thursday, they suggested wash the print, let it air dry, pop the supports off, then cure. Some people will say cure it with the supports on there and then take them off. Yeah, exactly. And I'll show you kind of the difference. So I'll show you this first print here in a second, but I'm going to start off by showing you the bottoms. So here's the bottom on the first print that I did on this. And you see there's a lot of pock marks and just some extra pieces of the support material. And that's not too bad because it's on the bottom surface. And what I plan on doing is I'm just going to put some sanding paper down and just sand the base to get it flat again. But I want you to look at the detail that we are getting with this print. Now, the Mars 2 Pro is one of the lower end machines. It's only a 2K resolution, where I believe the Mars 3 Evil Diesel is a 4K and the Saturn is an 8K. So not only do you just have more size in the Saturn, but it's a lot more, you can get better resolution at it. Now on this model, what I did, you see that base is a lot cleaner. After washing, I let it dry a bit, and then I just used my fingers, and right at the edge, I just pushed down and broke the top layer on the, basically the interface between the support and the bottom of the print. And working my way around, I get that whole thing, I got it off, and we got a lot better look out of this. And I do see there is some shiny there, and it's cured resin, but that's where the I think a little bit more of the alcohol may have just come out. That's one of the hard parts is, yeah, just getting all the alcohol out of the print itself. But we'll go ahead and get you a little bit of a close-up here on the details. And this is the character Joe from Last of Us, which is Pascal, who plays the Mandalorian as well. And the amount of detail in his hair and on his backpack and clothes and everything is just amazing. I mean, you can literally see the stitching on the clothes and the buttons and everything. So I think this really came out really, really well. I can get it to focus on this. You know, it came out really, really well. Yeah, really, really good resolution and stuff for the 2K. Now, the models that I am using are these are busts from Eastman. I am a Patreon member of Eastman, so I can print these with no problem. And what I have going right now on the printer is Babu Frick from The Mandalorian. And so we should have, I'm going to go ahead and put this on because I'm going to pop the top on this. And then I will move you guys in for a closer look. But you have the ability to hit pause. And it will raise the print. And then what I'll do is I'll move you guys over here closer for a close-up shot. I think I'm going to add a third camera that will allow me to do close-ups without moving you guys so much, because I know this probably will get to you. But here's what we're looking like. And the nice thing is Eastman provides pre-supported models, so I don't have to go through and do all the supports. They're pre-hollowed, pre-supported. And right now I'm running it at a 0.05 layer height. So really, really, really fine layers. But even still, I want to say that this model was, I think, 4.5, 5 hours. I'll have to double check. But it's really, I mean, not that long. The Babu Frick one that's going right now is, it just started, it's got about 5 hours. And then the base for Babu Frick, which finished last night, and I cured it this morning, came out really, really well. So, the resolution that we're getting out of this printer is pretty amazing. And as I get used to the workflow, it's going to get easier and easier. Yes, Evil Diesel, my proper ventilator mask is downstairs. I do need to go dig it out. Well, let me rephrase that. It's supposed to be downstairs in the garage. It may have found its way out to the shed. But yes, I will get that done. So good morning, John D. Strand. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining us on this early morning. I am currently using Chitubox Basic, which is what comes with the Elegoo Mars. I want to say the version on the USB drive was 1.8.1, and I've upgraded it to 1.9.4. Glad you're doing good. Yeah. Yeah, Wester, Evil Diesel is going to ride my butt about that. And I will continue to ride his as well because I'm sure he doesn't wear his ventilator every time. Oh yeah, Westry, how's your Mustang adjusting? Yeah, a lot of people say to use lychee, however you pronounce it. Uh, the I can download and play with lychee. I can tell you that right now I'm just trying to get used to using a different slicer because I use um, we all make choices in life, some good, some bad. Yeah, definitely agreed there. Um, so I know there's a big debate over whether we use Chi Chi box or lychee slicer. Um, to me, it's kind of like, well, are you in the Cura camp or are you in the Prusa slicer, super slicer camp, right? Or you deal in the idea maker camp. Um, the printer came with Chi Chi box. I'm trying to learn Chi Chi box. It is definitely a lot different. A resin slicer is a lot different than we're used to with the FDM slicer. So I'm just trying to get used to that. And in talking with Evil Diesel, who's had his uh, Mars 3 Pro for a couple of months now, he's already told me just from looking at the initial prints that I sent him that, hey, drop uh, your layer cure or exposure times down like 0.2 seconds. You look like you're basically cooking it just a little bit too much. So I went in and made that adjustment. I haven't had any adhesion issues. It's still adhering just fine. Um, but yeah, it's been printing great. Um, as I started to say, the pre-sliced G code for the Rook test print, um, we had a print failure on it, and that's where we had to go through our first joy of resin, which was draining the vat and making a mess doing that, and then having to clean everything up with alcohol, and using our curved edge plastic um, scraper to get the print that it adhered to the fet in the bottom of the vat off. We were able to do that fairly easily, um, get things cleaned up and get things restarted. And what we decided is I am using a non-standard resin. So I am using it's an Elegoo resin, but it's the plant-based tough resin in gray. And it has a different bottom and standard layer cure time recommendation than, say, like the standard Elegoo resin. So I went ahead, broke out Chi Chi box, um, went through and added the things, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? I tried to use the files that would normally be on the USB stick. They're like samples from my mini factory, and for whatever reason, the STL files will not open up in Chi Chi box. So I'm like, okay. And I knew I had some Eastman bus that were pre-hollowed, pre-supported, and he provides lychee files as well as standard STLs. So unfortunately, when you use the pre-supported STL files, you cannot change the amount of supports that are used. Um, So yeah, I do need to maybe download Leech Slicer and give that a try. Okay, that's awesome, Westry. I'm glad to see that your new Mustang is getting into a routine. Has he made any friends with any of your other animals on the farm, or are you trying to keep him separate for now until he gets, I'll say, just used to the new environment? And how's your head doing, Westry? Yeah, John Strand. Really good for D&D and miniatures. I did download a bunch of dragons. I found some free dragons on my mini factory that I downloaded, and I'm going to try and give those a shot as well. Um, and I just, dragons. Digital dragon for a reason. I love dragons. Yeah, I'm going to probably print dragons rather than D&D small characters to start with, but we'll get there. Um, yeah, time lapses. I know that Uncle Jesse or Joel Telling, 3D printing nerd. I think it was one of those two that did a video on doing time lapses of resin 3D printers. Um, Though the problem with resin is until it's up above the vat always, you really can't tell. It's just kind of meh. Um, 24/7 for about 3 weeks. Yeah, Evil Diesel. And at some point, like I said, since I've got the smaller build plate, I can start doing the miniatures, and you can start focusing on the larger pieces, and we can bang out some, I'll say, some orders a little quicker and some test pieces to take to the local game shops. Super calm and sweet. That's good. Okay, yeah, because I'm assuming being on the East Coast, still up in Kentucky, that you've probably had a lot of rain and just windy and cold. So, okay, so you do have them with another horse. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, your OCD is really fun with them. OCD is really fun with what? Doing the supports and making sure the supports are all symmetrical and all that good stuff, or just the OCD of designing the little miniatures? Because I know you've been designing as well. Yeah, it's probably Uncle Jesse. All right, well that's good. I'm glad you're doing a little bit better, Westry. Um, are you still seeing two Mias or just one? It's important that you're only seeing one so you can get her begging strips a lot easier. Seeing two, you never really know which one you're giving it to. Yeah, so one of the other things that I did um, last night, and it was a little fun. I had everything like clipper screen wise installed on the Zero G Mercury One downstairs. Hey, 19 Watcher 99, how are you doing? It, did Chewy get the resin printers up and running again for you? Um, so I had gotten the Zero G Mercury One downstairs. I'm doing good, 19 Watcher 99, doing good. Um, so the Zero G downstairs has been running headless. I do have Big Tree Tech Manta M8P with a CB1 board, so I can go and do a web interface. But if I'm downstairs and I hear something going wrong, I either have to run upstairs to pause the print or grab my phone or tablet and log into the web interface and tell it to pause or what have you. If I see something breaking loose, I can exclude an object so that it just stops printing the thing that has failed, but keeps doing the rest of the prints on the build plate. And I'm finding that just having some type of screen, whether it's a standard, I'll say the typical Marlin screen that we're used to seeing, where you can interface with the printer to do a couple of things, is a lot nicer, especially when that printer is not here in the print cave, but downstairs in the dining room, living room area. So I went ahead and went with the Big Tree Tech HDMI 7 because I couldn't get the 5. So I went ahead and got the 7. And while I was waiting for it to come in, I installed Clipper Screen, thinking, okay, Clipper Screen is going to be there. All I have to do is plug in the cables and good. Not so much. I have the cables installed, but what I had to do was go into SSH into it, go to /boot/board.env.txt, and then uncomment a line to tell it that it was using an HDMI display. Once I did that, boom, the display was up and active, and it works. So right now it's just sitting on the box on the table. I'm in the process of printing the screen, or not the screen, printing the case for it. And once I get the case and get it mounted, I'll take some pictures of it, maybe a short video of it actually working. So that's one of the other things I've worked on recently. Thanks for the alert, John. Come on back and hang out with us a little bit longer if you can, or when you're done with whatever you're doing. I am only going to stream until noon. I got a hard stop at noon. Because I streamed so long on Thursday, I did commit to taking Mrs. Dragon out later on today, so I am going to have a hard stop at noon. 2 is a little scary. Yeah, I'm sure that Mia realized that something was off, that you had gotten hurt, because animals are really, really good at picking up on that. And, yeah, she would be right by your side. Because I know my mom's dachshund cannot stand men. But when she had her heart attack this past September, was in the hospital for an extended stay, she actually warmed up to my dad, me. I mean, would lay right next to me and cuddle and let me pet her, rub her belly and stuff. So, yeah, dogs can sense when things are amiss. Cats can too, and something's wrong with their owner, and they just need some caring, and they'll give it. Never been much of a planner. Yeah, resin can be messy, and like Evil Diesel was saying, if you plan a little bit, and once I get into the workflow, I think things will get easier as I do the resin printer of, okay, you got the print going, you need to keep an eye, add more resin if you need to, but then let it sit for a while to drip off as much as it can, transfer it over a slap mat into your alcohol bath or water bath if you got a water washable resin, get it cleaned up, let it air dry. Now it's a lot easier to work with without a lot of potential mess. Yeah, and that's definitely, if you've got it, so at my house it's just me and my wife, so we don't have any animals. So great that we don't have to worry about any animals or little children potentially getting into the hazardous chemicals. But yeah, you definitely want to keep them in a place. Have your silicone slat mats or your large silicone mats. You can get them bigger than the one that I have here. I think this is the large slat mat that I have down on the desk right now. Um, but you can get larger uh, silicone mats. So get the largest one that you can that'll cover the most area and give you the most, I'll say, ability to handle a mess. Hey, good morning, Zombie Hedgehog. How are you doing? What'd you do? Just finish streaming and jumped on over, or what? Just kidding. I know you're normally on late at night, so thank you for joining us this morning. Oh, the cat stole the dragon's head? No way, Evil Diesel. Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah, and like I said, I've got carbon filters. I ordered some directly from Elegoo, and I don't know why I wasn't thinking right because it's going to take a while for them to ship and get here. But I ordered some new vats and the carbon filters from Elegoo. And then I was looking on Amazon for something else last night and saw them. I was like, well, hey, I can get those there today. So I've got more 99% IPA coming. I've got some carbon filters coming, and and well, a couple of other things. And I just ordered another wash bucket because that way I have had some people that say, well, yeah, you can just set the bucket out and the resin that's in suspension will solidify with the UV rays, and then you can just scrape it out. The problem is you've got the spinning agitator in there. So if it gets on the agitator or it'll limit its ability to spin freely, and then you have to deal with taking that, dumping it all out, taking it apart. So what I did was I got a second bucket coming, and I'll be able to strain from one bucket into the next and get all as much of the solids out as I can, and then keep reuse the remaining alcohol. So having that secondary bucket will keep me from having to go into a some other plastic container and then doing multiple pours back. I can just pour it into the one and keep going. Yeah, just make sure you get the right one, and I can send you a link for that, Evil Diesel, because you got the Mercury Plus like I got for the 2-in-1 wash and cure station. Yeah, we've been sitting here sending stuff back and forth to. Um, okay, yeah, I'll send you the link for the one that I just ordered. Um, and yeah, they get here real fast from it. So yeah, zombie. So I just started. We had an initial print failure on the Rook test print G code that comes on the USB stick. And what I was thinking is that it was different resin curing settings because I'm using the plant-based tough resin versus just the standard, I'll say baseline resin. So I went ahead and resliced it, and I figured, okay, well, if I have to reslice the model, I might as well just go big. So I started with the um, Eastman bus because he's got them pre-supported and pre-hollowed. And so this was the first actual print that came off the Elegoo Mars 2. I should probably switch over to the other camera a little bit better. I just probably won't be able to close to it. But the details came out really, really well on this print. And then the bust itself, once again, this is Joe from Last of Us. Came out really great. A lot of detail, like in his hair and clothes. And now this is the Mars 2 Pro, so this is a 2K resin printer. And like I said, I'm working on my workflows. So this is the first one, and I used the snips and was trying to cut off the supports. So you see there's a lot of divots and chunkiness to the base, right? Which would be easy enough to just put some sandpaper down and just do a few passes with some sandpaper to get that cleaned up. And on this one, after the wash, I used my fingers and just basically dragged them across and pressed across to peel the supports off. And I got a lot nicer finish. So, and like I said, the nice thing about these files from Eastman is they're pre-hollowed and they're pre-supported. It may be a little bit heavy on the supports, but oh well. But yeah, and then even on that first print, I was showing Evil Diesel, and he suggested like reducing the exposure time just slightly by like 0.2, and so that's what I did. And the Babu Frick base here came out really nice, and once again, lots of really nice detail to it. You can see all the brick texture in the different parts of the stand. And so that's what we have going right now on the printer is Babu Frick. So, you know, this is my first foray into resin printing. So it was a little bit of a learning curve just to figure out how to get the Z. But the nice thing is once you get the Z on these, unless you change something, you should never have to go back and mess with it again. It's going to be the same. Doesn't matter what kind of resin you're using either, my understanding. Your Z is going to stay the same. Now, I do have the Wham Bam flex plates. And if I go to do that, then yeah, it's going to be a big difference because the magnet on that flex plate is super thick. A lot thicker than I'm used to seeing on our FDM printers. No, always re-Z. What do you mean, Evil Diesel? I mean, the Z is based on the actual, we'll say the FET at the bottom of the vat. So it shouldn't matter what, yeah. So right now I am doing the scrape. I do have the flex plate. I wanted to run and get a couple of prints underneath it before I went ahead and put the flex plate on. The plate can be off. So you go through a homing and set the Z offset on every single print. I've run, this is the 4th print in a row now, and I haven't redone the Z on it. That's what everybody was telling me was. Okay, gotcha. Well, and that makes sense because like on my FDM printers, like, you know, we home, I do a bed mesh before every print a la Prusa, right? So even on all my clipper, you know, my my switch wire, my D-bot, my Ender, the Ender 5 especially. On my Ender 5, I'll actually do a home, a Z-tilt, another home, and then the bed mesh before every print. And to me, it's worth the extra time there just because it's a 370 by 370 bed. So it's a huge bed. And going through and doing that process every time, yes, it takes a little more time to get the print started, but if you're going to run a large multi-day print that's either multiple parts or like a helmet or some other large piece of cosplay, you want to make sure that your first layer has the best chance of having good adhesion without being too squished or anything. Yeah, see, that's what they were telling me Thursday night, Zombie, was that you set it and you forget it unless you change something. Like if you think your set screws came loose, or like in the case of the, when I go and put the wham band plate on, of course I'm going to have to redo it because the overall thickness has now changed. Now that makes sense, yeah, Evil Diesel. If you've got multiple, because the getting another build plate or build head, I think it's like around $25. So it's not that expensive. And the nice thing is if you have multiple build plates, then when you take a print off and you have it sitting over here washing, you can just slap the next build plate on, like Evil Diesel said, make sure and revalidate your Z, and then go. And you can have a print going while you're washing and curing the other one. It's not that long because it's not like you're washing it for half an hour. But if you're doing a production run, maybe worth having, saving a few minutes here and there and making use of it. So, oh, interesting. So you're talking about maybe having some wiggle room and not real tight tolerance on the mount joint itself. Or yeah, mount plate on one and a standard plate on the other. Yeah. So I will say in that case, it probably depends then on what your situation is. I mean, if you're using like me, where I've got just the single build plate, as long as you make sure that the screws were good and tight, then it should be relatively good. I don't think you'd have too much of an issue with the mount. It's the slide on no nut mount, but maybe I get you. Oh, thanks for coming out, John Strand, and I hope you have a good day for the rest of your day, and that you have nice weather wherever you are. So cool. Um, but yeah, so far I'm liking the Elegoo Mars. I am going to move it over onto this table over here, which I know is right in front of a window. I always keep the blinds closed like that. And if I need to, I've got, one of those science fair project boards, the ones that fold into three pieces or had the wings. And I can just set that right up there to be another block. But for the most part, you keep the tops on and you're not going to get the UV in on it. All right, thanks for the lurk, Zombie. But yeah, so far I've really enjoyed the resin printing. Beyond a bit of the fumes, I do have to start wearing my respirator more often, and I need to get those carbon filters. You may have seen when I took the top off, there's a printed part on the backside here, and it's a spacer that I found that actually helps you set the filter in an area where it still has all the proper airflow around it to work appropriately, and it allows you to get your vat in and out easier without having to sit there and try and micro align it. So, but yeah, so far I'm really liking the prints. They're coming out really great. I did post some pictures out in the Discords and one on Twitter, kind of joking of the, I don't know if I'm doing this right, but here's the results I'm getting. Um, it, Seeing this and then also seeing the resolution that Evil Diesel's getting off of his yeah, and I've heard both ways. Evil Diesel, like if you um, and there was a poll even on Elegoo's website, or not their website, but Twitter, and I want to say it's like if you're planning on continuing to print within, I think it's 1 to 2 days, it's okay to leave it in the vat, but you do need to have some method of stirring the resin that's in the vat to mix it back up. Where with the bottle, of course, you can easily shake it. But you can use like a silicone brush because it's not going to mar the vat, but it will allow you to stir the resin that is there in the vat. And then you can basically wash the silicone brush. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's something that you have to keep an eye on, kind of like your resin levels, to make sure you're still good. Um, and yeah, I've been, I'll say, running pretty much front to back on prints right now, just because it's the new shiny and it's fun. So, um, so yeah. Um, Also, for those that do resin print, Elegoo has had a deal on 10 kilos of black PLA filament for $99. And I think they have a color package for, I think it's 110. And it's like 2 white, 2 blue, 2 red, and 4 black. And that's been standard for a little while. And all of their resin bulk deals have been for the EU only. Well, they now have some resin bulk deals, 10 of the 1,000 gram, so 10 of the large bottles. I want to say it was their regular standard gray resin, 10 bottles was 150. Then they had their ABS light for 10 bottles, I think was basically 250. Their water washable was 250 as well. So depending on which type of resin you're going to get, it was a little bit more expensive. But yeah, I mean, if you do a lot of resin printing, or if you do a lot of like large piece or standard stuff that you're going to print, or you don't care what the color is, then Polymaker has the draft PLA for 10 spool or 10 kilos. And I can't remember what the price is on that. But it's very competitive. It's like $10-15 a roll is what it comes out to, or spool. So yeah, I mean, look at some of those, because the Elegoo filament is pretty decent standard filament. The Polymaker filament's awesome. You can just ask Westery. I sent her after I kind of made the comment of, well, maybe she'd be willing to do a shield and give it away. She decided to roll with the idea and take the challenge, even though she said she'd never print another one again. So having felt bad for quasi owning her up, I went ahead and sent her one of the draft packs of Polymaker to help her get that project going. And yeah, that's what I've heard, is that it prints really good. Yeah, exactly. And so the draft PLA, my understanding, it works well. The nice thing about the draft PLA is I think it's 30% post-industrial recycled material. And by post-industrial, not post-consumer, but post-industrial. So these are the remnants out of Polymaker's own production line that's being recycled into that draft PLA. And so that's even better because they're already going to the all cardboard spools that are recyclable. And now you're using the recycled PLA to generate, you know, their normal production waste anyhow is going back into creating that. So that's awesome. Yeah, and with you doing not just angles, but every one of those pieces has some type of curve to it, right? It's not like you're doing a cylinder or a radius. It's an actual compound curve that you're doing on those shield pieces. And the fact that it's printing so well, and you should be able to put it together and not have to, I mean, you're going to have to do some filling. I know it's not like it's going to be put together and there's no work, but if it reduces some of that work, and I've heard from other people that ABS prints for post-processing are really good because they sand really well, but you have the harder, you have some harder guidelines when you're printing with ABS versus like a PLA. So that's where I'm interested, Westry, on what your thoughts are of that cosplay filament that came your way. And because that's supposed to be easy to sand, fill, prime, and so forth. Yeah, concave curve on a compound concave curve on one side, which makes a compound convex on the outside, concave on the inside. But it's a compound curve because it's that shield. So yeah. Yeah, I would say you should get either the draft box or look at getting that 10 spools from Elegoo. But I will say that the Polymaker stuff comes from their U.S. warehouses, which AKA are Amazon warehouse locations. And I want to say the stuff I sent to Westry got there in 2-3 days. Where if you go out and you order stuff from Elegoo, it's saying could take up to 90 days. Even if you're saying I'm going to the U.S. East. So, hey, Free Heathen, how are you doing today? Glad you could come and hang out with us. How are things up in Canada this fine morning? I know on Thursday night when I was streaming, I actually had the window open because we started working with the resin printer and it was 75 degrees outside. And right now it's about 11 a.m. and 41 degrees, so the window is not going to be open today. Okay, good, Westry. Yeah, because I know that what the B is a little tougher and more durable than the Cosplay A. And I want to say I sent you the B because, well, they didn't have A in stock at the time. And I'm really curious, like you said, how that prints and whether or not you're actually able to use the bow legit, or if you have to go with a different material. Yeah, it rained almost all day yesterday, and I had a spool of Polymaker show up yesterday. In fact, it's the jungle green, and I'm going to use this for the um, Hound. Darn it. Let me see where. There we go. Might be easier on this. It's a jungle green. I'm going to use this for the Gen 1 Autobot Hound from Toymaker 3D. So oh, thanks, Free Heathen. That would be great. Yeah, so okay, now Westery, on that bow, remember that you get more, I'll say, strength from more perimeters. So I would definitely up the perimeters and potentially the infill, though it'll be interesting because you're on the main part where the handhold is, because I'm assuming it's going to be in multiple parts. You're going to want that to be really strong and maybe have the heft of the weight in the middle. And then on the arms of the bow, they need to be able to bend some more. So you'll still want the perimeters for strength, but maybe not as much infill to allow it to bend a little bit more, or even do pet G. Yeah, that green is a good green color, and I've got a lot of the basic colors like a blue, the jungle green, yellow, black. I used aqua blue because there's some things that require light blue, and it's a lighter blue. And then I got a steel gray for the dark gray stuff, and I'm using the any cubic gray because it's a lighter gray for the stuff that calls for light gray on those, and it was coming out really, really nice. Yeah, so she has the cosplay B. So I sent her the B because the A wasn't in stock when I saw it. Oh yeah, that metallic bronze PLA would look great. Yeah, the big thing there is making sure that you have a good mechanical connection between the parts on that bow as well. Because that's probably going to be your biggest failure point is right where the pieces join. I'm looking around because I oh darn, I may have taken it downstairs. So I have a friend, my buddy. He was my best man at my wedding, and he asked me to print a couple of things for him for his kids. So one of them wanted a dark red Cinderwing Rose Dragon. So rather than just do a plain red, I went and picked up from Polymaker the rose gold and another type of silk red, and they look really, really good. I'm going to do a test print and check them out and see which one I like before, of course, I do the large dragon. Yeah. Yeah, I have I have a couple of reels of the uh, silk chrome. I just haven't used them yet. The plan was probably going to do a Mandalorian helmet out of it, but I just haven't sliced it because I was literally waiting for the organic supports to come out on Prusa Slicer, and I've got that. I just haven't gone through and sliced that model yet, and I think I'm going to wait. Once again, I'm going to do that one on the Ender 5, which sits in the living room, and it's going to be probably a 2-day print. Um, And so I'm going to wait for when Mrs. Dragon goes on a trip. She's going to go on a conference in DC at the end of the month. So I'll probably get that ready and run that while she's gone. Yeah, use 5-minute epoxy. Yeah. Yeah, those organic supports, I've used them a few times. Like right now, I have a part that's printing, and with standard supports, if you needed to support like an underhang, so it's a mounting bracket for the HDMI display, and so it's got a base, and then it comes up with the rounded over knuckle that becomes an overhang, and it warns you that, hey, if it's got a low surface area, it warns you about potential instability, basically saying, hey, you may want to put a brim on this. But then with the organic supports, normally if you had like an overhang over a piece, you would have to do the standard support between the two, and you would wind up with a mar on both surfaces. Well, the organic support, believe it or not, there was 2 mounting holes, and it's actually coming up through the mounting holes and then over to make the pads for that overhang. So there should be 0 marring because it's coming straight through the mounting holes and coming over at an angle to do the support. So I really like the way that the organic supports are working, and the way that they're being laid in. So yeah. And you know what? Give me 1 second. I think I just saw that I actually had those filaments up here in the filament closet. Let me grab those. So yeah, on these particular dragons, I was looking for something interesting, and so I have rather than just the plain red, I've got the silk red, right? Now I know I should probably take this out of the bag just to show you guys, but so I have the silk red and then the silk rose. Right. And so I have a feeling I'm going to go with this one. Because just with the articulated dragon and the different facets on it, I think it might look better, but we'll see. Because I think I've got like the just the heads that make keychains. So I'll print a couple of those in each color and see which one I like better, and then go ahead and print the full dragon in whichever color I like better. And then the other one wanted a MacGyver dragon in gold, and so that one I think came out gorgeous. And this is 125%. I did one of these on the Ender 5, and I think I got it to like 250%. So he's just like super, super duper long. But yeah, I like doing those, and at some point I'm going to start selling them. I do have the commercial licensability for Flexi Factory and Cinderwing, and there's a local me and Evil Diesel went out there. There's a local 3D printer shop now in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they sell Creality printers and they do maintenance and support on Creality printers. They're starting to do like beginner classes on them. They also sell some Wham Bam products and of course different filaments. They have some atomic, atomic, Polymaker, AVP, I think E-Sun or Sunlu. But yeah, that's also where I got the I picked up a couple of the Obsidian nozzles for my Revo hot ends. So yeah, I'll be able to install those on any of my machines that have the Revo, which is almost all of them now. And they're 0.6 nozzles. So if I go to do the Mandalorian helmet out on the Ender 5, I'm going to say I could just swap in the 0.6 nozzle, but I can't because that's a Dragon High Flow hot end, not the Revo. But on anything that I've got a Revo on, which is, I guess, everything pretty much behind me, I can just swap that in and get quicker prints. Because I did put a Revo on the D-Bot, which is a 300 by 300 by 300, so it's 300 cube build volume. So yeah, and I printed this Wrecker helmet on there with a 0.6 nozzle. And this one finished right before, actually right after I got to Murph. There's a few, I'll say, bulging layer lines and an under extrusion area on here. You can see right here, there's a line of a little bit of under extrusion. And then I didn't have enough top layers. So I did get some gaps there, but I can fill that in.
Cheer 50.
And I may, at the very least, just clean up some of the edges. Grind, or not grind, but file down some of the edges and do a spray filler primer and sand it down and then at least give it a base coat. And I think that'll come out great. But that is the Galaxy Dark Red from Polymaker, and yeah, we've had numerous conversations with Nick. He agrees, it's brown. It's not dark red. So yeah, that's one of the things I want to start doing. So I've got a Wrecker helmet. I've got a Halo Master Chief helmet printed. I did the 2-part print of it, and I need to work on getting that cleaned up and put together as well. I want to do a Mandalorian helmet, and the other helmet that I have set and ready to go, and I know Free Heathen will love this. It's a Warhammer 40,000 Chaplain helmet. Oh, that's awesome, Watcher. Yeah. See, I haven't gotten into painting yet. I could literally, I've got at least 30 different busts printed from like Eastman and others. But I haven't gotten into painting because, well, I know where my skills lie, and painting hasn't been one of them. But it is something I could probably go and work on. And by the way, Watcher, thank you for the 50 bits. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's what I figured, Evil Diesel, is at one point I'll come over there and you'll start teaching me some of the paint and stuff. Exactly. And that's the thing is, it'd be one thing I can at least get in there and start doing just basic painting. Let me get the appropriate colors in the right space, and then it'll be okay. let me go through and start working on doing highlights or what do we call that? Weathering techniques. Or in Westerly's case, just let's throw it through the mud and then, lacquer over the top of it. Is that slap chop? Print and paint 23 lightsabers, yeah. So my version of paint is get the rattle can out, do a solid color, we're done. Maybe do yeah. And the majority of that, by the way, would be OD green from being in the military. But yeah, it did come out pretty awesome, Lester. I'll give you that. But yeah, what's his name? Nero 3D printed a Mandalorian set of armor. It was a combination. Like it was primarily the heavy Mandalorian armor, I think, off of Galactic Armory, but he did change a couple of things up and used a different blaster rather than the heavy blaster and stuff. But he went through filler, primer, sand, filler, or just primer, sand, and then he did a base coat with, I want to say he used the spray undercoat material from Rust-Oleum, which adds a little bit of texture. Think like spray-on bed liner, but not as gloopy. And it gave it a little bit of texture. So then when he came over with the silver, it had some texture to it, so it looked like it was wrought metal, right? And then he comes in and does dry brushing with a little bit of either dirt or dirt with a little bit of black paint that was watered down, and he just did some dry brushing with that, and that came out like really good. It looked really well. Because you go through, actually, I take it back. He switched up from that technique, and it was just watered down black, and he would paint it on with a brush, count to like 5 or 10, and then wipe it back off with paper towels. And so it's almost like doing a dry brush technique, but it goes a little bit faster, I think, because you can just kind of just slather and pull it on and then wipe it off real quick, almost like you would be like dabbing on a wall is what it looked like. Yeah, it came out pretty good. If you ever get a chance, look up his videos on YouTube on how he did that, because he did a couple of videos on how he did that. It turned out well. And then I love watching he's changed his name recently. He used to be, I think it was like Daryl ODST, but he's the one on Twitter that's doing the Halo armor pieces, but he's basically printing the pieces and then creating silicone molds out of them. All the armor, the helmets and all, are silicone, so that they're deformable. So they work out really well. Okay, Watcher 99, no problem. So yeah, Evil Diesel, really interested in probably coming over and working with you on, learning how to do some basic painting and stuff. And like I said, I'm sure that pretty soon you're going to send me a bunch of files and say I need X number of these prints done, and we'll start working on that. We'll start batching out some prints for you. If I need to get the ABS light, just let me know. Yeah, so what's everybody else working on today? Anything interesting? I know Free Heathen's getting ready to get his stream going. Hey, Rodney Mac, thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. Okay, cleaning up the studio. Yeah, and Zombie, thanks for the props. I know we raided into you Thursday night after that long stream, and you made a comment about how nice my setup was. And I'm telling you, this is very basic. But I do have the two cameras. I'm using a Logitech Brio, which is a 4K for the primary camera, and the Logitech C922X for the secondary camera. And I've got a bunch of the C270s that I normally just put up on the, as cameras to focus on capturing the prints while they're happening. Like this one here. So they're low res, but they work great, especially if you're using them for the little small cameras to show people what you're printing. And they're good for just monitoring a print to make sure that it's not coming loose or something. Hey, Rodney Mac. Oh, okay. Hey, Stephen Poole. So you're just over at your friend's borrowing his Twitch for a while. Gotcha. Yeah, and what I'm thinking about doing is I've got another C270 that I was using a C270 as a close-up camera initially, and I just didn't like it's I think it's got a fixed focal length on the C270, but I do have the other little tripod here, and so at some point I'll probably get another 922 because it does have an autofocus and stuff, and I'll mount it on this little tripod, and then I'll be able to use it on the desk for like some straight up close-ups rather than having to pick it up and play with the lights to get it under or near a camera. Yeah, and that's where I said I'd use the I'll probably just get a 922 again. Though quite honestly, I'll look at the price difference between the 922 and the Logitech Brio, which is the 922 is 1080p, and then the Brio is a 4K. So maybe that's what I'll do is look at the price difference, and if it's close, then I'll just I may just get another Brio and use the Brio as both the primary and the side camera, and then move the 922 to a true desk. If I'm trying to do a close up of a print or something. Gotcha. And I could probably real easily mount one up and just run the cord over. The nice thing I like with the Brio is it comes with the USB A to USB C connector for it, and it's a pretty long cable, so you can run it pretty decently. If you need to extend it, you can. So yeah. Yeah, I normally use Amazon for a lot of stuff. I've been going to eBay primarily for, I'll call them my donor machines. Um, I've gotten 3 Ender 3 Pros, an Ender 3 Max, and my Ender 5 Plus off of eBay, and all from the same seller. And they've all come really good. The Ender 5 Plus was missing some of the internal packing foam, and the glass bed was shattered in the box, which made it fun because when I took it out, I had to make sure, and I've still knocked a couple of pieces of glass out of the extrusions, just moving around the Ender 5 Plus, but it was a great machine, right? I got it up working. It was no big deal. The biggest issue was the V wheels looked like it had been through like a Yeti mating ritual. I mean, there was more fur on them than I've seen, you know, after vacuuming the floor when I did have animals, like dogs and cats, right? We're just like, this is crazy. Um, and I replaced the wheels and realized that they were doing it as well. So I figured it was something with the extrusions themselves, you know. So then I switched it up to a 0G Mercury 1, which is the Core XY um, kinematic for the movement on the gantry. And then went ahead and did the Hydra bed, which is the triple lead screw kinematic mount, similar to the Trident, the Voron Trident. But it uses linear rails for the vertical and for the little arms. I think they're MGN9C for the arms. And that's the one that you're seeing right there on the screen, Mercury Rising. And I tell you what, it is a solid workhorse. I'm getting that bed on the bed mesh is, well, here, let me double check the latest bed mesh. Maybe. Yeah, you're going to do another simple core. I've noticed, how many rooks do you have? I thought I saw you with at least 2, but I'm sure you may have 3. Yes, my mesh is pretty close to, you know, a standard bed, but when you're talking about doing it, you know, over 370 by 370, all right, 2 that work and 1 beta, yeah. So I had a rook. Um, I've got like the whole top put together, and I've just recently tossed all the other parts because I'm going to go through and print the Mark 1 parts with some of Gulsifer's mods and go ahead and get that put together. The one thing I don't have yet is um, is a build plate for it. And now I'm like sitting here going, do I just order a build plate, or do I order a build plate and pre-order a rook through Fabrico at the same time? So good question, Evil Diesel. So the baby belt is still over in the box. As you can tell, I got most of this table cleared off. The resin stuff is going to move over to the side table here, which will free up the bench. At which type, the debate was, do I do rook or do I do baby belt? And now that you're mentioning it, maybe I come out and will rebuild the baby belt, because I need to bring it up to the latest set of printed files, because they have changed several things, like um, the on the version that I have, the belt itself wasn't supported, and the newer one, there is a support that goes across now so that the belt itself doesn't flex as much as it's trying to print, which gives you better adhesion to the belt. And there's several other changes that they made to it. So I will probably take that, get it up on the bench next, and we'll do the tear down of the old one and rebuild the new one. The S1 bed is a good value. S1 bed. I'm not sure which bed that one is, Zombie Hedgehog. I'm used to, you know, I was planning on just getting a V0 bed. Um, And then the question would be, do I heat it or not? I know it doesn't have to be heated, but I will probably, do the bed heater, whole thing. Okay, gotcha, gotcha. So it comes with a power supply dedicated for the bed. Yeah, that I was looking through the Fabrico kit specs, and those look really good for the Rook. I mean, the fact that it's Honey Badger rails, which the Honey Badger rails that I used for the Zero G mod were amazing. Um, I mean, great, great retention, already lubed with Mobile XCP2. So, yeah, didn't just, it's nice to be able to take it out of the package, clean out the excess, wipe it down, and just mount and go without having to take the carriage off, pull all the balls out, clean, take it apart, clean everything. And yeah, the only thing I would say is based on the Rulahan project, the intent was it to be on the cheaper end. And I think they could have used, like, if they had an option for a non-heated bed at a reduced cost, you know what I'm saying? I think if they had a couple of tiers for it, it might be a little bit better. Because still at $300, when Rolahan's package was, you should be able to get under 260 if you had parts. Now, granted, yes, I've got most of the parts. There's like a handful that I would need, so I probably have to do it. But yeah, the full bomb without a heated end is 300. Okay. Yeah, and once again, I think the intent of Rolahan's initial project is scavenge from your parts bin of what you have. But yeah, when you're getting all premium parts, yeah, it can't be beat. Hey, Retro Maker TV, how are you doing today? Thanks for joining the chat, coming out and hanging with us. This is going to be a short stream if you've hung with any of my other streams. We did a 6.5 hour stream on Thursday night, and I don't want to say it got me in the doghouse, but I am going to be taking Mrs. Dragon out on a date today at noon to make up for spending all night Thursday night. Oh yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, Zombie, is having a smaller Core XY platform that you can learn and understand the Core XY kinematic system is good, because the first Core XY I tried to build was a 300 by 200 D-bot, and I got frustrated because I could not get it to print well, and so I gave up and tore it apart. And then I built a V01, and I learned a lot more on a smaller package that I'll say is a square form factor that makes tensioning the belts easier. And I went back and rebuilt the D-bot as a 300 by 300. And yeah, it's still useful. I tell you what, the vast majority of the prints that I do can be done on the V01 and the Prusa Mini, because you can scale things down. But I mean, there's some mechanical style prints that I would print over on the Ender 3 or the one of the Prusas. And if I've got a larger print that would be almost edge to edge on the Ender of the Prusa, I normally put that down on Mercury Rising. Just because as you start getting to the edges of the bed, I tend to get more curl even on PLA, because I get cold edges or, you know, the drafts from the vents. Yeah, I still say that it was a great project, but deltas are probably one of the hardest to do as a first printer as a build, because that was a straight DIY build, because it was a Castle Mini. Now, if you went and got a, you know, like a trying to think of, you know, if you got a commercial Delta printer, right, from a vendor, it would be a lot easier, right? Because everything's going to be built, everything should be set up nicely, and it should calibrate easier. But doing a Castle Mini that's custom built, self sourced, and you went rep firmware on it with a Duet board right off the bat. Yes, I do pretty much have a printer for everything, Evil Diesel. And like I said, the baby belt gets me, it's kind of like the Rook. It's a small form factor, really small form factor, but it gets you to understand the basics of belt printing and what you can do with the belt printer and the differences. Because how do you orient a part to get the best strength when you're printing on a 45-degree angle, right? Because all your layer lines on that are a 45-degree angle. So it's trying to understand, okay, on a standard Cartesian printer, whether it's, well, a standard printer, whether it's Core XY or not, you've got the bed, and you know based on, do I need compression strength or shear strength for the part, is how you orientate it on the bed to get the right layers, right? To have the best strength at the point that you need it. Well, when you're printing at a 45-degree angle, you know, how do you orient that part to get the best layer adhesion and the best strength out of it? And that's where belt printers are good for production batches, and that's where, like, Pooch over at Repcord has got it down pat. He's doing small parts that are used as joining pieces to his rep boxes, so they're not large structural parts, and he can batch them out quickly. And the way he's printing them, he's printing like all of the parts that are attached as one piece, and then you just snap them off like you would a model, you know, like a standard, you know, car or plane model. And that makes his batching easier, and he's got them all dialed in. So there's use cases for a belt printer. You just need to know where that right use case is, right? Like, you would not do a multicolor print like the multicolor skirts where you do that background mesh. You wouldn't do one of those on a belt printer because you would constantly be doing color changes every layer. Where when you start off on a regular printer, you would do the first couple layers in your contrast color and then go with, you know, do one color change and do the rest. So, you know, you just have to know what the use case is for the belt. Okay, got you, Retro. So yeah, I've obviously been printing FDM for a long time. I started, well, I say a long time. My Tilo Tarantula, which is down here and quasi hidden because it's a mess. It's definitely not in working order at the moment. Got me started back in 2017, and so over the last 5+ years, I've just, so I used to build computers, and now I just build printers, and it's fun. I think I just need something to tinker that keeps my mind going. And then I just started, this is my first resin printer ever. And thank you, Evil Diesel, for getting me into this. I know I got you into 3D printing altogether. And so Evil Diesel's been going for about 6 to 8 months. And he's got the Castle Mini, which is a project printer, true project printer now. A Focus that he's heavily modifying now, and a Ender 3 Pro that's modified, at least with linear rails on the Y. He's looking at doing it on the X. And he's got the Mars 3 Pro. So yeah, he's got the bug, I'll say. But yeah, we're kind of the same. We like to tinker. We like to do little electronics projects here and there. It keeps us out of trouble. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that goes. And once you get that working well, Evil Diesel, did you plan on releasing that hot end modification? Because if not, I know at least a couple of people like Chewy that would be interested in it. You did good. Good. Yeah, so what he's doing is he's that integrated tool head on the Focus Odin 5 series that uses a ribbon cable. You know, in the short time he's had that printer, I think he's run through 3 or 4 ribbon cables. And we had issues with the extruder motor being dead from the get-go. So I think what he's designing around now is the Revo. Is it the Revo Micro or the standard like Revo 6 hot end with a Micro Swiss direct drive extruder? Revo standard. Okay, the standard Revo, which gets you into that whole quick interchangeable nozzles. So he's got a couple of Revos, by the way. So it gets him the interchangeable nozzles and the ability to go with the obsidian nozzles to print abrasive materials. An all metal hot end, which means you can get the higher temps. Ceramic heater, which means you get faster heat times. Oh, you already got another one on the way for the Ender? Okay. Did you get the Revo CR for the Ender? Or are you going to have to go through it and create a whole new mount? Yeah, the CR. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm running the Micro Swiss all metal on the standard Ender 3, the OG one. And I really like that. It's got a hardened steel nozzle on it, a 0.6, and it goes. I don't have any problems with it. So yeah, Westery, we'll definitely want to get some of those things out. Speaking of which, Westery, are you going to send that project my way? Yeah, and you have your wife's support. That is true. But that's because your wife wants you to print stuff for her cosplay. So my wife's been tolerant, and she just wants the printers out of the dining room, living room area. Yeah, and you're doing some more of the designing too, Evil Diesel. Really cool. That's a thing I've been interested in, but when I start doing it, I think it's going to be more mechanical versus, I'll say, more organic type structures. Yep, that's perfectly cool, Westery. I just wanted to make sure that because we had talked about it, I just wanted to make sure that that was what was happening. Um, yeah, so Westery had purchased a secondhand Prusa Mini, and let's just say it did not arrive in the condition that it was advertised. So she's going to send it over to me, and I'm going to get it back in working order because she's not the tinkerer per se. And I know she's been frustrated working on her Focus and then you've had some issues with the Kaiwus, right? In getting those up and running initially. Yeah, I think Evil Diesel for me, because I originally, my initial career choice was going to be architecture, right? And so that's kind of I'll say where my mind goes is more of, the mechanical parts versus a more organic shape. Um, I think that's where my mindset sits, is more of the straight lines, measured, precise versus an organic. Like, I'm not going to be making articulated dragons. I love dragons. I'm going to have some other people design them, and I will print them. But I know where my skill set lies. That's not it. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and that's the nice thing with the community is, if you have a problem, there is somebody in the community that can help, right? And so the things that I'm not strong in, I can then lean on others, like resin printing. Never resin printing. Never done resin printing, but Thursday night, with the help of several people out of the community, on the stream, we got it running. And well, I think the results speak for themselves. I'm getting really great prints off of this Mars 2, right? Then I will go over to Evil Diesel, and he'll start teaching me how to paint something, and guide me in that, because, well, he does that. Um, okay, gotcha. So you bought a base model, and then you're working on learning how to do the animation with it. Okay, cool. Um, and yeah, the community is really awesome, and we help each other out. And that's the thing that I found is, if you're having a problem, like right now, um, I woke up to a print that was partially completed on the Ender 5, which is running Clipper. So the issue is, the filament sensor tripped. It went to the park position to wait for me to swap the filament out, but Clipper has a default idle timeout. And after a certain period of time, it will shut off the heaters for both the bed and the hot end, and shut off the motors. And that's the big issue. Because when it shuts off the motors, it has to rehome before you can resume. And of course, if you've got a big print right in the middle of the bed, you can't rehome it, right? So I went out and was doing some research this morning, and I've seen some people that have posted a couple of different macros that sets a different idle timeout, but in the process of doing it, does tell it to shut off the extruder heater, right? So you just don't have ooze happening, and you're not cooking filament in the hot end at the same time. So it will shut down the extruder heater, but it doesn't shut off the heat bed heater, which means you won't have print adherence issues, and it doesn't shut down the motors, which means you should be able to reheat, extract do a filament unload, do the filament reload, purge, and then say resume, and it'll go through and continue printing. A la the Prusas. So like on a Prusa, whether it's the Mark III or the Mini, when you run out of filament, say it's in the middle of the night or you're away out on a date or something, it will go to a park position and it will start beeping at you. And then it will drop the extruder temperature. And it can sit there for 3 days, right? Just like that. No big deal. Yeah, you're consuming power, but you're good. Still has thermal runaway protection and everything. And then when you come and you do that filament unload reload, you hit resume and it starts right back off where it was. So that's the issue I've been having with my clipper machines. I'm going to try out some of these new macros, see what see if I can validate that it's working on the test print. That's not like a 14+ hour print that ends in the middle of the night while I'm sleeping. And then I wake up to, well, in the case it's what's two of the parts that are printing right now are two of the parts that failed because they're the tallest pieces. One part was salvageable because it was the lowest height and it had completed. But the rest of them had failed overnight because of the filament running. Yeah, and that's the other big thing that Evil Diesel just talked about was basically going back to an umbilical wiring a la the reality series, because any of those ribbon cables, I mean, they will fail. Um, some of them, I want to say it was some of the Anycubic machines had ribbon cables as well, but they were way more robust than the ones on the Focus, because the ones on the Focus had those little slide connectors, and you have to make sure that it's right aligned with pins that you can't see. Otherwise you have weird issues that can happen. You got to play and jiggle with your cables. The ones I believe that were on the Kaiwu actually were like a computer style connector where you push it in and it actually clicked, right? And then the cable itself was a little bit thicker, more like an old style, IDE ribbon cable on a computer versus, this super thin, kind of like the Raspberry Pi camera ribbons, right? And so those things, it just after a while of bending, or you don't print for a few days and it sits in one spot, and then you start bending again, you're just going to have stress points on that cable and it's going to fail. So, and even still, even on the switch wire and stuff like that, where you're running stuff in cable chain, you've got silicone wires. People started running Cat5 cable in those cable chains, and those break real easy because Cat5 is not made to be bent over and over and over. So then they went to silicone wires because everybody from the your RC community uses a lot of silicone wires. They're very flexible, and they're heat resistant. So hey, let's throw them in a cable chain. Once again, you will rub off the silicone in the cable chain. So people started oiling them with PTFE type oil to help make them last longer. But they're still, after so many hours, having to replace them because the cables are where, the sheathing of the cable is wearing through, and then you're getting shorts. So now we went to FEP, or PTFE shrouded cables, which works great. They should be able to move up against each other in the cable chain for a lot longer without issue, but you will still have breakage at some point, right? Because once again, it's a cable that's constantly being flexed and moved at different points, and there's going to be some rubbish. It's just going to take a longer period of time now. The best thing would be to go umbilical, but I've had issues with my Prusas on umbilicals where I've had cables that have failed, either on the like the thermistor and the filament sensor are two of the bigger ones that have that happen. So I'm looking at CAN bus as potentially being, I'll say, a good thing to try because it's 4 cables and an umbilical, should reduce weight, and if you select the right type of cable and the right gauge of cable, you should be good. A lot of people are saying, hey, just use Cat5 for the CAN high-low because it doesn't need to be a thick cable because you're not running power through it. But once again, you may run into issues with that. I think if you run a FEP cable and twist them, because you do have to have it's 1 twist per inch to combat electrical interference with the power wires that it's going through. And I think if you do that with a FEP cable, that might actually give you a better result. Don't know. I'm probably going to try it. But I am going to switch a couple of my printers to CAN bus here in the near future once those boards come in. So that's some of the projects we have going. It is getting close to 12 o'clock, and as I mentioned, I have a hard stop because I got a date this afternoon with my wife. So let's see if there's anybody online that we want to raid into. Does anybody have any suggestions, or is anybody? I guess I can come out here and take a quick gander to see who all's with us and who all's online. Oh, and Tuesday's stream may get moved. I'm waiting for confirmation. Sorry about that. My VP is coming out for a site visit and doing a meet and greet, and I think there's a dinner being scheduled. It's either going to be for Tuesday or Wednesday. Of course, Monday's a holiday, so I'm trying to get confirmation now if it's scheduled for Tuesday or not, because if it's scheduled for Tuesday, being a new manager, I'm pretty sure I need to be at that. Well, I'm going to be on site for the meet and greet, but if they're doing the dinner on Tuesday, then I'm going to be at that. So as soon as I find out, I will reschedule the Tuesday stream. If I reschedule it, it will probably reschedule to Thursday, simply because Wednesday night, there's too many people that I already know that are streaming on Wednesday night that I don't want to trump on. So Computer Medic is on. Oh, I will, Evil D, so I'll say hi to her. I don't know if she was on listening actively today, but I will definitely say hello for her from my brother and sister from another mother. Yeah, so what is it Computer Medic? 2 different words? Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering. Exactly. So if I can break away, Evil Diesel, let me know if there's anything I need to come over and assist with. I'm not seeing too many people that I follow online. Let me see if Spinning Moon is actually chatting or if he's just. Yeah, I think he is just straight up streaming prints. Just trying to look around and see who's online currently, and that may be an interesting one to raid over into. Oh, I'm not, Well, here you go. I think we're going to try somebody new. I just found this person. It's Hut Armories, and he is armor smithing a cosplay of Nemesis from Hades 2. I haven't. Oh, thanks, Zombie. And I'll try and catch you on one of your next streams. You're pretty much streaming every night, right? But I'm going to go over this because it is metalworking, like our good friend Blacksmith Pop does. But he's actually going to be working on different armor pieces for a cosplay, which I think is pretty cool and aligns pretty well with some of our, with a lot of what we do in the 3D printing community. It's just using a different medium. So, all right, sounds good, Zombie. We'll go ahead and do this raid over, and I will try and catch you either tonight or tomorrow night. But please join me as we go over on this raid, and let's watch for a little bit. Give them 10-15 minutes, see if it's something that you would like and be interested in. If so, give them a follow. If not, let's at least raid in and say hi and show them what our 3D printing community is like and how we're complimentary here. And once again, this is going to be Hut Armories. And thanks a lot, folks.